Hey folks, welcome to Cybersnacks. You may know me, you may not. My name's Ben. I'm the Director for Customer Solutions Engineering here at AttackIQ. As is tradition, I'm going to open this one up talking about my favorite snack. I live up here in the Great White North. It's already snowing. I've got a fire on over here. And as my father-in-law likes to say, you got to lard up for the winter. So what I've got here is some very fresh venison sausage. I know the guy who processed it. It's delightful, it's hefty, it's hearty, and it's really got, it's got that heft. If you know me, you know I love tech. But I'm a methodology guy at heart. All right. Now, when I say that, I mean operations planning, tactical integration in support of strategic objectives. All right. That kind of stuff. And to that end, today I'm going to talk to you about 3 things that you can do to integrate good testing into your cybersecurity program. And most importantly, get operationally relevant results from the investment in time, money, people that goes into really testing properly. So without further ado, let's be about it. The first thing that you can do. So you got to define a problem that you're trying to solve by testing. All right. Now you probably already know what it is. You have no real visibility into your actual threat space and your risk profile. Your pen tests, their annual pro forma exercises in compliance. You do your level best with the resources on hand to ensure that your security stack does its job. All right, now you commiserate with the plight of InfoSec professionals the world over as you answer the question, are we protected against X, with the universal shrug? And this is really the thing of it, isn't it? We have an array of problems, all of which relate back to the confidence you can have in reporting the success of your mission as InfoSec. Now, it's not necessarily as easy as it may seem to get around, though, since, a testing program is an investment of any combination of time, money, and people that you have to fight for. So this is why we have to define the problem and do so in no uncertain terms. See, doing that means showing the truth of the situation, like where you stand right now, in as much excruciating detail as possible. So what we got to do is try looking at your architecture from the point of view of the most relevant threats to it. All right, now, this is going to mean making some assumptions about who the threats are, what they can do, and to that end, you should be looking at things like the attack framework, open source intelligence. You can use these things to extrapolate what the threats you think are relevant could do. All right, now that's the important place to start. You have to know what the threats are capable of doing to you. Because if you haven't thought about it yet, any idea of what they can do is valuable. Now you're going to take this idea, all these techniques, all this stuff they can do, and you should be lining that up against what you know about your organization's security posture. And you do what's called a TTX, tabletop exercise. It means you get a bunch of your buddies, they're in InfoSec, and maybe some folks who aren't necessarily InfoSec but speak the language. You literally sit at a table or stand, I don't know what kind of work environment you got, and you talk through what it would mean for these adversary techniques to succeed or fail. And you have to understand it in the context of your controls. You line these things up against your controls and your architecture and the critical assets in there, and you understand what could happen. Worst case scenarios. All right. Now, you're not necessarily running tests right now. You are trying to understand the what if. All right. It's an exercise that helps you to clarify the need to test your systems in earnest. All right. Now, you got to do this because you are already dealing with a litany of unknowns at this point if you don't have a real formal testing program. So what you'd start with is making some educated assessments of what you do know. Now, when you present the results of this, which you'll inevitably have to do because there's no point doing it otherwise, do it professionally. All right, don't be alarmist, but you've got to be serious about what your analysis says. Trust your analysis. Trust what you know as an expert in InfoSec. People will listen. There's 1. Do your TTX. 2, be threat informed when you test. Now, all the problems we just talked about are the result of taking a reactive stance and treating hope as a course of action. Pro tip, it's not. Okay? So when you test your enterprise, you've got to put yourself on the playing field, get yourself on the board, so to speak. You have to understand things from within what's happening. Assuming breach is great, but that implies an assumption of being targeted. You have to understand what it means to be targeted. Now, you currently know as little about how that assumed breach is going to happen as you do about who's targeting you and why. All All right. Now, what I mean to say here is that you should take the risk in planning and figuring out how to test of making authoritative statements about which threats are of the most relevance, and you need to commit to testing and proving your architecture against them. It's a classic nothing ventured, nothing gained scenario. You can't hope in any context. I don't care who you work for. I don't care how big your organization is, how much money you have. You cannot hope to test against everything. All right. And when you do test, the results need to be impactful immediately. All right, or you're going to risk losing the engagement of the people whose backing is critical to expanding your efforts into something beneficial in the long term. What this means is you've got to dive in and you've got to run fast. All right, not blind, but fast. Because if you're going to make the case for this investment, this continuous investment in the ability to test your architecture, you have to say, look what I already did. Look what we can already do. Otherwise, they're going to lose interest and you're going to lose backing. You're going to lose funding. You're going to lose people. You're going to lose time. This is where we have to start, and we have to start doing it quickly. So be threat informed. Be bold. Don't hesitate when it comes to picking a threat. If you think you understand what your organization does and what's important to it, go to the Oracle, Google search, and figure out and see the first threat that pops up when you look yourself up. That's all it takes when you've got nothing else going. Be bold and get after it. So we talked about defining a problem, boldly approaching the problem and figuring out a solution. And then we got to talk about getting results. So number 3, analyze and report on results in the languages of the people who you need to use them. That includes you. But more importantly, it involves management. If you've taken this SP, the answer to every question, the most correct answer is get management buy-in. And that's one thing that I happen to agree with on that one. So if you're going to test, though, it should be fun, but not just for fun, right? You need this expenditure of effort and resources to pay back more than you put in. How? Well, on the assumption that you ran a good test and can relate it to your organization's threat profile, it's pretty simple, right? Speak tech to techies, speak resources to leadership, and speak risk to senior leadership. Everything you do in a test has meaning to every level of the organization. It's a matter of how you say it. They care about the specific assets or systems you ran the test on. But senior management, execs, they might want to know the significance of those systems to the bottom lines of risk and mission. They care about the specific techniques you chose to implement against them. But the tech team might want to know the details of how they work as a means of developing better detection analytics. They care about your specific controls tested in each case. But your middle management, your first line leadership might want to know what it implies for their personnel assignments and project deadlines to fix all that stuff. What I mean is you should expect SMB V1 to be as significant to an executive as it is to an operator in the context appropriate for each. Okay, your testing program has to become an iterative, continual process of storytelling. You're telling different stories to different people because they like different genres of literature, whatever you want to call it. You just have to illustrate what's wrong and how to set it right. Everyone has a different perception of that. So 3 things, real quick, snackable. See what I did there? Define the problem you're trying to solve. Run a TTX, make some assumptions, and boldly implement that in your plan. In a threat-informed plan for testing the right assets, the right time. Go for it. Don't hesitate. And then take what you get out of that test and report it to the right people in the right way. Because that's how because your results as the InfoSec person are dependent upon the support you get from the rest of the organization. We all know this. Don't try to argue about it. So report correctly. So I hope you found this useful. Once again, I'm Ben from AttackIQ, and thanks for coming in.